The superager is actually, there's like cognitive and physical. And the idea is that in our 60s right through to 80s, we function as we would 20 or more years younger than what is expected in that age range at this time. And a lot of it really points to inflammation.
Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I'm your host, Kavita, and the founder of Power Purpose Play, a global community of women in midlife. I'm here to tell you that it's your time now to rediscover what has always been inside of you and bring that out into the world. If you're wondering what's next, but don't know quite what that is, or if you feel a twinge in your heart telling you that you have so much more to do and so much more to offer, you're in the right place. Ask yourself, if not now, when? Do you want to leave your job, start your own business, take control of your health, reignite the passion in your marriage, write that book, or at least that first chapter? Transitions like this can be daunting, but through listening to my story and interviews with incredible women every week, I hope to inspire you to take action. I rediscovered myself after the age of 50, and I know you can too. It's my time now to help you do just that. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I hope you're doing really well. And for those of you who are celebrating Thanksgiving this week in the U.S., happy Thanksgiving. This is such a wonderful time of year to reflect and be grateful for all that we have and for the family and friends who make our lives special. I've had the opportunity to do exactly that in the last few months, especially, spending quality time with my loved ones, prioritizing my self-care, and reflecting on how best to serve my wonderful community. It's for this reason I'm really excited to extend a special offer for you. From now until midnight on December 2nd, 2022, I'm offering my signature 3-month coaching program. It's my time now for 25% off for new clients, just to celebrate Thanksgiving. I am so grateful to you for your loyal support of my mission to empower women like you to live the next chapter of your life to the absolute fullest. Not only am I offering this discount to you, but I'm also offering you a free 90-minute Energy Leadership Index Assessment as part of my coaching program. I normally charge extra for this, but from now until December 2nd, I'm including this in my 3-month program. So, I'm a certified women's career and life transitions coach. But what does that really mean? It means that if you are in a transition in your life or career right now and are wondering what's next, I can help. I myself transitioned from a corporate career of 25 years because I felt there was something more and different that I needed to do and to offer the world. I understand that you may be scared. I understand that you may be thinking, I don't know where to start, or I'm not good enough for this, or what will people think? These fears are perfectly normal. But through my step-by-step coaching process, we will work together to find the answers for you. I can help you rediscover who you are, what you really want, and why, and how to get there. I want you to leave those fears behind and help you build your confidence to really reach the highest vision of yourself. Really, the time is now, my friend. If you're wondering what an ELI or Energy Leadership Index Assessment is, it's really a comprehensive research-based assessment tool that allows you to look honestly at your perceptions and your attitudes and your behaviors in times of stress and in times of non-stress. This really helps form the basis of our future coaching sessions, and I am also certified to administer this assessment for you. So if any of this piques your interest and you want to learn more about It's My Time Now or the ELI assessment, reach out to me at kavita@powerpurposeplay.ca today. So as you're enjoying your Thanksgiving feasts, enjoy this next podcast episode with Glenda Britton, who I speak with about the importance of a healthy lifestyle and nutrition. Glenda is a holistic nutritionist who believes that, especially as we age, we can actually feel 20 years younger and more vibrant if we can make small tweaks in our lifestyle and diet. I hope you enjoy the episode. I'm also so grateful to you and thank you for tuning in every week to this podcast and for supporting my mission to empower women like you to make this next stage of life the best stage ever. If you enjoy this podcast, please do share it with your friends. It really helps us to get our messages to more and more people all over the world. So happy Thanksgiving, my friend. Enjoy the episode, and I'll see you at the end with the main takeaways. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and I am a certified women's midlife transition coach and the founder of Power Purpose Play, which is a global community of women in midlife. I'm also a speaker and an author, and my mission is to empower women like you to find your inner power and purpose and to say with confidence, it's my time now. As part of this mission, I interview incredible women for this podcast who share their stories of reinvention and who will give you their advice on how to overcome some of the obstacles in your way to reach your vision for yourself in your next stage of life. This week, I'm so pleased to have on the show Glenda Britton. Glenda's passion for holistic nutrition is fueled by her own lived experience. After years of being unwell, multiple diagnoses and medications, along with buckets of supplements, the doctor said, there is nothing more that we can do. She had no choice. Out of sheer desperation, she turned to nutrition, initially having no idea what to do, but she spent hours every day in the kitchen. Luckily for her, it worked. She returned to school to learn the science behind how food could help her get better when nothing else could. Now, Glenda happily states that she's healthier now than she was 20 years ago, which is amazing. That's such a great story. So welcome to the show, Glenda. How are you today?
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I'm just so fascinated by the little bit that I just mentioned about your story and your lived experience being so unwell for so many years and then getting little relief from traditional medications. And I think a lot of people probably can relate to that. And then you found the power of nutrition. So maybe you can kind of share your story of how you transformed your own health and also how you do the same for your clients as well.
Sure. Well, how I transformed my health initially is really totally not the same as what I do for my clients because I didn't know what I was doing. Right. So I didn't have a laid out path that that is the idea of what I offer to my clients is a path towards wellness. For me, I had been unwell for so long but I had normalized it. My hormones were kind of out of whack, PMS and terrible menstruation experiences. I was getting sick every year with either strep throat or bronchitis or flus, but everybody else was too. So I didn't really realize that there was anything not quite right. And then as I was aging, things just started getting a little bit worse.
They that tends to happen as we age.
And again, that is accepted. It's accepted that, our memories go and our immune systems go and we get aches and pains and all that kind of thing. It's like, okay, this is my future.
Yeah.
But then when I was 40, I had our fifth child, ended up in an emergency C-section and a cardiac embolism. I ended up in the ICU for a week and diagnosed with a heart condition and ended up on a couple different heart medications. But I wasn't going to let that get me down. So I read the books. And at that time, they were talking about how people with heart conditions can run marathons. Well, I didn't run a marathon, but I did start running. So I was running 5K 3 times a week.
Wow.
I had been eating a vegetarian diet for over 20 years. I got off my heart medications and I just kept going. I have 5 kids at one point in 5 different schools. So I was also wearing the stress badge of honor. It was like, I'm stressed. Oh, yes. And I'm busy. And I was very proud of it.
Yeah.
All this in hindsight, right?
Right.
Hindsight's 2020. Then my energy started to wane. I could just feel it. My whole system just started to plummet. I didn't know what was going on. I tried a cleanse. I was on, this is about 10, 12, 15, maybe 15 years ago. And so, I was Googling things. There wasn't quite as much information as there are out there now, but I was trying different things. And then one day I couldn't get out of bed.
Oh, no. Okay.
I couldn't walk without assistance. I couldn't get dressed, nothing. And fortunately, I knew a naturopath. She was my daughter's friend's mom. So I went to her. And that's the day my holistic journey began. And over the next few years, of course, lots of other things happened too, but just Reader's Digest version. A few years later, I still wasn't really feeling great. Of course, I could sort of fake it. Like I was having some days 2 or 3 10-minute naps. So I'd be well enough to host a dinner party or go to a concert that night. But I'd go back to the doctor. And at that point, I was seeing 2 naturopathic doctors, a couple specialists, and my GP.
Yeah. And
they were like, sorry, this is just the way some people live their lives. It's like, oh my gosh. Like,
there was no diagnosis. No diagnosis at all.
Well, yeah, basically chronic fatigue.
Okay.
But that chronic fatigue, hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, different things, chronic anemia. There's things going on clinically. My labs weren't coming back perfect or anything, but they were like, and I was like, this isn't going to fly. So a friend of mine told me how she had tried a raw food diet when she had chronic fatigue. So I tried that. And so for the next 6 months, everything I consumed was raw, sprouted, soaked. I had a dehydrator. That's when I was spending hours a day in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But it worked. Like in 10 days, I could start to feel some energy returning to my cells. Like that's probably more clinical now than what I actually felt at the time, but that kept me going and kept me trying it. And then one day my daughter contacts me and from Montreal, she was in school in Montreal at the time. She said that there's this program called from the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition, and maybe the 2 of us could take that. She was really interested in this. She's a yogi and that kind of thing. Luckily, I didn't wait for her because she went on to New York City and Los Angeles and all this stuff. So, but anyway, I went back to school really just for my own information. I just wanted to know, like, how could this be? How could, like, and it's still not like I was feeling 100% all the time, but it's still the transition was significant. And I just knew that if I kept going with this and knew more about this, that I would continue to get healthier. But so by the time I graduated, I just thought, oh, I got to share this information. Like,
of course.
I can't just keep it to myself. So I started practicing and I've continued learning. My education has continued through the last 12 years because it has to. There's just so
many updates.
All the time. The second part of your question about how I work with my clients, it's really much more of a path. There's a series of intake forms that help to highlight if there's an underlying imbalance in the body so that we can sort of make sure that nutrients are built up in those areas. I do microbiome work almost on every client now. I went back and took a program so I'm a certified microbiome educator. So there's always a microbiome component, I'd have to say always a microbiome component to my protocols, because that's very much going upstream. So even though there are nutrients, foods, supplements, and lifestyle strategies for symptoms, and there are, unless you go upstream to the actual cause, the imbalance, then just not going to make as many gains. And
so is that discovered through the microbiome testing? Is that upstream? No.
Like, and the main reason I don't, from what I gather, and this is from the well-sourced information, that the testing just isn't adequate at this point. You have to sort of almost, if somebody is not well, and by the time people come to me, they've usually tried everything. So the people that come to me, like, I'm not a weight loss specialist. I work with very complex health conditions, which is bizarre, but because I'm only a nutritionist, I'm not a doctor. But people have tried all the other things, and then they end up in front of me But that was my story too.
Well, similar to you. Yeah. I was just going to say,
exactly.
And by the way, it's not only, you're not just only, you're a nutritionist.
Yes, I know.
Let's take that word only out. Okay.
Thank you. But at the same time, I don't want to like blow my horn like,
right.
Nutritionists know everything. We're part of we can be part of the health team.
I was going to say that obviously some ailments and some diseases need the medical.
Oh, definitely.
And so, but this, from your own experience, it's something that you saw that even despite medicine and they didn't have an answer. So this is in addition to
exactly. Yes.
The
thank
medical.
Goodness
Yeah.
Thank goodness we have the surgeries and the medications and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a supplement.
Definitely.
Yeah. So on that, I know that you had a quote, and I've heard this quote before, is let food be thy medicine. And that to me is really interesting because I've always known that, but I haven't really understood really what that means. And also based on your experience, and you were talking about your clients and the clients you see, what are some of the health issues that you see that are most common as a result of nutritional deficiencies or just lack of nutrition, or what are some of the things that you've come across, and how can food be that medicine? You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
I know that's probably a big question and then probably a lot, but maybe just highlight some of the main ones that you've seen.
Sure. Basically, just about the quote, the quote was made by Hippocrates, right? The father of modern medicine over 2,000 years ago. It basically acknowledges that there's nutrients in food that are healing.
Yes.
And so I think we're at a place in history where we've gotten so far away from our natural food sources that we need people like nutritionists. Nutritionists wouldn't have been a thing 100 years ago because we were eating.
That's true. Yeah.
We were eating organic food in soil that was grown in soil that is robust and full of nutrients. And our industrialization, which again, some good things have come from industrialization, but some not so good things too. And a big issue with it is the quality of the food that is being made available to us and the chemicals that are being added to food. So the types of conditions I see are, it's such a wide range: heart disease, autoimmunity, mental health, lots of mental health. I've worked in mental health. That was really one area that I was very interested in from the very beginning. Anything arthritis, anything with an itis at the end. There's an inflammatory condition going on. And so a lot of it has to do with trying to get, and some people by the time they've come to me, they've read some books, they've started cooking, and so they just really need somebody to help devise a plan that's really more individual for them. So even though it's a very, we are all biochemically unique, there's no two people exactly the same. And so the protocols, I take all my information and I don't dole it out all the same to each person. It's very individualized. Yes, where they're at. And
okay. And sorry, I don't know if I let you answer that previous question about the microbiome. I was interested in that. Did I?
Yes.
I don't know if I think I cut you off, or I don't know if we finished that.
It's fine. It's a huge topic again. We could just talk for hours just about that one thing. The microbiome it's a series of bacteria, fungi, parasites, viruses, things that we often consider bad through history, right? That antibiotics and antivirals and antifungals and anti. But we know now that this microbiome, which is everywhere through and on our bodies, we're learning more and more about this all the time, actually is a big indicator of our health. We want to make sure and most of our microbiome is in our gut, trillions and trillions. And even though there's some microbes that we've thought of as bad, they're learning now that even the bad ones have some good properties. I like to think of it sort of like the planet Earth that has so much diversity and so much with all the different species of animals. And you take a tiger. Well, a tiger's not bad, but you wouldn't want to walk into a room with 10 tigers. So same with the microbiome, that we want all the good and the bad, but we don't want too much, perhaps, of the dangerous ones.
Right.
And so the microbiome should be robust and diverse and with lots of numbers, like lots and lots of critters. And our diets have, and there's a whole bunch of reasons why most of us, and like anybody who has a health condition, could use a little bit. And I go very, very, very gently in an antimicrobial kind of protocol. So it would be, this is like usually starting like a quarter dose, and in some cases never even get beyond half a dose of an antimicrobial. And then at the same time, probiotics and fermented foods. And then the microbiome is like one of our first levels of defense in the digestive tract. So now I'm getting into digestive.
Well, so this all kind of relates to inflammation and the gut health and all that, right? And then, so I know that 70 to 80% of our immune function resides in our gut. So are these some practical things that we can do to improve our gut health and also reduce in turn, it's our immune function. So it's all kind of related. So
definitely,
I know that's common. It's commonly talked about now, but I'd love to hear like kind of practically, what are some practical things we can do to improve our gut health and then in turn our immune system?
Yeah, well, so just something that we can all do is eat a variety of vegetables every day, vegetables, fruits, grains. Like a lot of people are on very restrictive diets now, not eating dairy, not eating wheat, whereas we have to think back that depending on where your family history is from, your microbiome could need dairy. There are prebiotics that feed your microbiome in dairy. There are prebiotics in gluten that feed your microbiome. So we have to sort of think, am I Italian? And no, I'm not. But I've been eating, but my ancestry has been eating wheat for generations. But now you can't consume gluten. The problem is not the gluten. The problem is the gut. The problem is the health of the gut. So, but just for the average person, that doesn't mean everybody should go out and buy Wonder Bread. But maybe if Wonder Bread's not. Sorry to call out a brand here, but there's something called calcium propionate that's in a lot of the breads that you find in a grocery store, and it causes leaky gut. There's studies.
Okay.
So anyway, it's not hard to find out this information. It's all readily available, and that doesn't mean one slice is going to do that, but I know we used to eat a lot of processed food around here, and it was multiple times a day that we were consuming things that probably caused leaky gut. So eating a wide variety of really good quality food as much as possible. Yeah. And I know right now the price of food is just.
I was just going to say, I was just thinking about that. I was just thinking about that.
Anybody's like, oh, great.
Like going to Whole Foods, for example, it's like, oh my God, I know that it's important, but there's practical considerations around it, especially now with inflation and everything, but that's another topic.
It is. Maybe have me back another time. Actually, I've been meaning to blog about that too, about just saving ways to save money while eating healthy, because there are some ways, and sometimes we don't implement those changes until push comes to shove, right? It's like, this is getting ridiculous. So we have to make sure. And there are things we can do that really go back to the kitchen. And I know there's nutritionists out there that somehow work with people who don't cook, but that's one of the things when people are interested in working with me, I make it quite clear that the expectation is that they're going to.
I see you have some recipes on your website too, so I do. I'm going to actually try some of them. I was really cool. Yeah.
Well, and I try to make them family friendly. Like it's not like you just have to eat like a rabbit. Cooking, like French cooking, is so amazing. They use bone broth and grass-fed meat and beautiful like herbs. Herbs are like nature's medicine. So getting away from the packets of flavors, but that's easier said than done. Like if you don't know how to make a soup, where do you go? You
Right.
rely on those processed foods that have chemicals so it's sort of like it's a two-way street. First, you got to sort of get rid of all the chemicals as much as you can, and then add in a wide variety of good quality foods and some fermented foods if you can.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
So, and sugars.
That's great. Yeah. Good. Some great tips there. Thank you so much. So Glenda, as you know, this podcast and kind of my focus is on women and also women 45, 50 plus. And so as we're aging, there's a concept that's out there called the super ager. And maybe you can, I know that you're very interested in that, and I believe you're writing a book as well. Yes. And so what is this, and how can we practically protect our brain as we age?
Yeah, the superager is actually, there's like cognitive and physical. And the idea is that in our 60s and 80s, like 60s right through to 80s, we function as we would 20 or more years younger than what is expected in that age range at this time. And a lot of it really points to inflammation. Mm-hmm. And so the inflammatory processes in the body. And it's the superager term. Actually, there has already been a book just came out called Superager. So I am writing a book, but it won't be called that. But
whatever it is, it's going to be great.
The same principles apply. Yeah. And this concept has been recognized by Harvard Medical School. This is not woo-woo stuff. They're saying that you better start like 30 years before you're in your 60s. So that's not your audience, but I don't believe that. I didn't start any of this stuff, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I didn't start it until my late 40s. I'm in my 60s now. So when I say I feel better, like I'm in my 60s and feel better than I did in my 40s, and that's not the norm. But these things don't happen overnight. And we as humans seem to think that everything should happen like that. You want instant gratification. And so changing your diet to better sourced food, you're not going to necessarily see result of that within weeks, maybe months. But it's interesting because I know because what I do is always very, very gentle. And I often am in a position to point out to my clients 6 months or a year later, 2 years later, that, remember we did that, the antimicrobials and the high dose probiotics and focused on cleaning up your diet. And then your medication started working better. Or then the supplements started working better. Like we know now that certain medications, they didn't even know this. They just knew they worked, but they know now they work. For some people and not others. And the reason they work for some people is because of their microbiomes are in better shape.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's fascinating stuff. And this
must be very interesting to see the progression in your clients.
It is. And like for years, back to my own personal story, for years, I'd go to speaking engagements when we used to do those kinds of things more in public. And people would come up to me afterwards and say, so how'd you fix your thyroid? And I'd be, like I took supplements and I removed gluten for a matter of years. And like I knew I didn't really know how, even though, because Hashimoto's thyroiditis can't be cured.
Well, I have that too.
But I am.
So I know I'm on a medication every day. Yeah.
And I was. But what I did, and I didn't know this at the time, is I also had a candida infection, terrible systemic candida infection. So I went at that with antimicrobials.
Okay.
So in trying to heal that one thing, that was, the other things too. Yeah. And maybe even the medication for a while, because sometimes especially in a situation like mental health or something, the medication can be really helpful to stabilize a person so that they can then implement lifestyle changes and that kind of thing. So maybe the medication helped me for a while. And then I started adding all of these other benefits and then anyway, I'm not suggesting anybody do that. It was just something I did myself. Yeah. You really should only do something like that when working with a qualified healthcare practitioner.
So the superager concept really is getting back I guess the function when they're 60s and 80s, the people who were studied, I guess from 60 to 80s, they had the function of a 20-year-old to 20 years younger than current.
20 years younger. Yeah.
20 years, yeah, not 20-year-olds. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was due to.
Wait, I don't know we want to go back there.
No, not 20 years younger. Sorry. And that was due to several of these tips that you've given us, lifestyle changes and.
Yeah. In the super agers are often from parts of the world where they are eating a cleaner diet and they're eating good quality fish and a
kind of like the blue zones. Does it relate to the blue zones?
Yeah. It's those kinds of practices which it can be more challenging in the Western world in some ways, but it's available to us now, even much more so than it was when I started this 15 years ago. What's available is, there's really good food out there.
Yeah. Okay, great. And Glenda, you had mentioned before that you're very interested in the positive effects of nutrition on mental health. Mm-hmm. So we don't often think of that. We always think of nutrition as being more like a physical thing, but how does what role does nutrition play in our mental health?
Yeah, it's a really great question. Well, first, mental health can be a physical thing. It's just often not seen that way. In fact, it's probably the only field of medicine where diagnostics aren't really usually used. That's changing, but generally speaking, it's based on somebody's reporting of how they're feeling, and then medication is then prescribed. So there are ways to have a better understanding of what might be going on in the body, and that the person still may be experiencing some trauma or grief or something like that, and but if we address some of the underlying imbalances, and it could be like thyroid health, B12, iron, inflammation, lower, not enough omega-3s that your brain needs, imbalanced blood sugar. Like we know diabetes and mental health go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's lots of different things that could be assessed. And then once they're assessed, then we know that there's ways of addressing them with food and with supplements. But again, like I had just said, sometimes medication is really helpful to stabilize an individual so that, if you can't get out of bed, you can't expect somebody to go for a walk every day, for example, or make smoothies. So it definitely is a process and one that can, in an environment where the doctors are open to that, it can be quite effective.
Does it provide a little bit of more clarity, for example? Like, I don't know, like if as you are eating healthier and gives you more vitality and energy, I would imagine that also gives you a little bit more clarity in their thinking.
Definitely. But it also, we know now that depression is an inflamed brain. And we know now that the gut and the brain are connected.
Yes.
The gut is being referred to as the second brain. It has many cells, cells similar to the brain. Yeah. And there's a direct connection. So if we're working on inflammation, let's say, we're working on gut health. And when we can stabilize things in the gut, it's interesting.
It's brain health.
Yeah. Whatever.
Sorry,
gut health. Yeah. It's holistic, right? You can't. That's the difference too. With Western medicine, really chops the body up as if one thing has nothing to do with the other. Mm-hmm. Whereas with holistic health, that's just
it's all connected.
Whatever is good for your heart is good for your brain. It's good for your.
That's why I was asking, because more clarity you get as you're eating and your gut health, and then the clarity kind of helps with your thoughts and your brain, and it's all kind of connected. So
definitely, and that's why all these different. From thyroid because that's metabolism, right? If your brain isn't getting enough energy,
it's
going to be low.
It's all about the energy,
and if you're up and down with blood sugar dysregulation, then there could be anxiety. Yeah, and also I think I know from my own experience again that when I was just really bummed out that I just wasn't feeling well, one of the first things that was offered to me by an internal medicine practitioner was antidepressants.
Antidepressant, yeah.
And so and I'm like, well, yeah, I'm bummed out, but
not, yeah,
because of these other things.
Yes.
I just want my life back.
Yeah. I find your story really interesting, especially that you mentioned that you started this kind of journey in your mid 40s. And now here you are at 60 and feeling in your 60s and feeling 20 years younger or 20 years better like you were 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's
better than I did 20 years ago. Because I don't I'll get, right now I've got a tickle in my throat, but I'll feel
okay,
it.
You can have some water.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I will.
I will too.
Just things that we normalize is our 60s, like no one's sleeping well, or that's why menopausal symptoms, and it's like whoa, like
I know really there's so much work can do, and that's why I really wanted to really, one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on is because women who are listening or people who are listening to this podcast, and if you're feeling these things and something is not working from a medical perspective, maybe it's the diet that you need to look at, and there's so many different ways in our body that that they're connected. And so I just think it's fascinating. And I myself want to look into it more because although I do eat healthy, there's probably things I can do to tweak it. So
and that's a key word I use all the time is tweaking.
Yeah.
A lot of people are overwhelmed, and I think that's why I'm usually like a nutritionist is the last stop, because it's like I'll take a pill, I'll go for a run, I'll do anything, but I want.
But can you imagine if it happened earlier, even before? Oh, that's prevention kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Nobody comes to me for prevention. No.
Well, maybe
that's my story too. That's my story too. But
So I wanted to, there was a quote on your website or belief that you have that I want to share. And I really liked it. So I'll read this and then we can talk about it. And it says that each and every one of us has the power to effect meaningful change for our health, the health of our loved ones, and the health of our planet. We can't do one without impacting the other. And I think that's awesome. And I think I wanted to highlight that because I've noticed around me so many, especially younger people, and there's stores out there, there's more restaurants turning to vegan and Ayurvedic medicine and organic and whole foods. And so I think I've seen, and I'm sure you obviously have, this shift in our culture to this. And have you, maybe you can talk a little bit about this shift, and also is it because of what we've gone through in the last couple of years with COVID, and are people getting more aware of the value of nutrition, and where do you see this going, and where does it come from? And it's just, I've noticed, maybe not so much in Canada, but I noticed when I go to the States, for example, there's a lot more of these whole food places and vegan restaurants and all this. And I just find it fascinating that young people are learning this more earlier than we did.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't really around so much when we were that age.
Not at all.
And maybe because the need wasn't quite as great at that point. Yeah, it is really interesting because I have kids from 20s into the late 30s, and some of them are definitely, usually by the time they leave the house, then they embrace it. They don't when they live with me. Go figure. But I think they see what's available to them, the information that's available even on the internet. So many people do yoga and meditation, and we're at a time now, and I'm getting more and more involved in that kind of energy healing and those kinds of modalities. Myself, I'm taking a certification for some energy healing now. And, we're at a time when there's more people speaking about this than ever. And young people, I think they always want to do things different, at least until a certain age, than their parents. And they can see that a lot of people in their 40s, 50s, 60s and on are maybe living longer, but we're living with illness. The incidence of, yes, there's more people being cured of cancer, but there's so many more people that have cancer now, and neurodegenerative diseases and like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. It used to be rare, and now it's
Yes.
rampant, and it's just that in the foreseeable future, it's just going to get worse. And how much they're actually thinking about that, and how much they just, it's hard to say, because I think a lot of them are having health crises younger and younger. I know a couple of my children have turned to a more holistic, healthy lifestyle, and like aches and pains in their 20s and that kind of thing. And realizing, like, I had one son say, I'm just going to eat like this as long as I can until I can't anymore, and would just gobble all of his McDonald's or whatever. And then, but go figure, it's just early 30s now, and he doesn't eat like that anymore. And,
I just think, especially with with the pandemic, I think it just raised everybody's awareness, not only of their health, their physical health, but also their internal well-being and their internal purpose, and all of that. People are really more and more, from my experience, looking inwards and saying, what is it do I want from a life perspective? Also, how do I want to adjust my lifestyle to kind of go back to the roots, almost back to nature, back to what I fundamentally want for myself, for my health. So I think I see a shift. I see more and more people seeking out experts like yourself and coaches who are going to help them move along and find out what is it that they really want. So I just wanted your perspective on that and to see how you felt about that. But I think it's positive. It's definitely positive that the younger people are like, my son is like he's a health nut. He works out all the day and all the time. And he just has protein and vegetables, and he's like so healthy, and he's giving me books and telling me what exercise routines I should do. And I think that's fabulous. I think it's so much to learn from the younger people. So that's great. So wonderful. So maybe you can let us know what are some of the things you're up to now? What are your latest projects, and what can people look forward to for what you're doing now?
Hi, my friend. Kavita here. Do you often feel blocked from moving forward? We all feel that way at times. These are referred to as energy blocks. I've created a short, actionable PDF guide to help you release your negative energy blocks. Click the link in the description to download it now for free. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Well, I've switched things around a little in the past year. I was doing some more online programs and that kind of thing, but I've gone more, thanks to everybody knowing how to use Zoom now, not thanks to a pandemic, but thanks to everybody able to use Zoom now, I'm able to work more one-on-one with people and put out a wider net to work one-on-one with people. And so that's what I do pretty much full time, is one-on-one consulting. I have a 6-week package that you get a lot of my time, and I don't take on that many people at a time. It's not for everybody. It's expensive, but at the same time, you're getting toot my own horn, one of the best nutritionists out there. I did just win an award, Lifetime Achievement Award last spring. And so my work is being honored that way, which thank you that way. And because I've been lucky enough to continue my education over the last 12 years as well. I'm always learning more and stay pretty up on top of the latest science of nutrition. And I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book that I hope will be read by not just people like my clients, but hopefully some practitioners. I have met some doctors on my path, and, clients, doctors, and that kind of thing, are very interested in what I do. And so it's kind of a basic, from digestion and microbiome and detoxification and hormone function and a little mindfulness thrown in and some brain health. And it's a kind of thing that there are some recommendations, but it's not about supplements per se. It's really about just getting back to eating the foods we need to be eating. And for people to sort of assess where they're at and what might be a good place for them to start.
Sounds like a very comprehensive and important book. Are you How far along are you, and when do you expect to have it out?
I'm hoping to have it out for the new year, but that's,
Wow.
the more
Okay,
I
so
say
you're really
that now, yeah. But then the whole, and it's self-published. It's not like I have publishers knocking on my door or anything. So it's, yeah, anyway, that's, I'm
nice.
trying to.
Well, maybe we'll have you back when it's done, when it's covered. That's great. That's a big endeavor, and so good luck on finishing it and getting that out. And it's very important information, I'm sure, for a lot of people. Well, thank you so much. Anything you want to kind of end off with? Anything for our audience?
Yeah, to my quote on my website, and I'm glad you like it. I was actually thinking not long ago that maybe changing the wording a little bit, because not all of us have the means to eat a healthy food. Food insecurity is definitely an issue, and available healthy food is just not out there for so many people now more than ever. But I used to give to different organizations when I had a heart condition. For example, I gave to the Heart and Stroke Foundation, and then when I went to school, I did a paper on the Heart and Stroke Foundation and their little heart checks on all the processed food in the stores and that kind of thing. So now, instead of giving money to things like that, I give money to farmers. I support local farmers, and I don't mean I don't go to the farm. I live near a really good health food store, and that's where I spend that extra money, because it is by supporting these farmers, these smaller farmers, instead of these big industrialized farms, we are protecting our planet. We are lowering the carbon imprint. And so it is a powerful thing to do. And, for ourselves, for our loved ones, and for the future of the planet. So that's what that means.
That's a great point. That's a really great point. As we said, kind of going back to nature and going back to what our ancestors did. And by supporting those kind of people who are helping that, it's so important. So I'm glad you brought that up. Thanks very much. Okay. Well, it was such a pleasure having you on, Glenda. And it's a lot of great information. And for anybody who's interested in learning more, we'll have all your links in our show notes. And please seek out Glenda for her vast knowledge of information on nutrition, holistic medicine, nutrition. And we look forward to seeing your book when it comes out.
Thank you. Now I really have to get it done. More people are telling. It's really going to happen. And thank you, Kavita, for the work you do. It's very important, and it's
I appreciate
great.
That.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Well, I'm trying. Anything that helps motivate people to make their life better, and no matter what age or circumstance they're in, we can all learn from each other. So that's why I bring people on like yourselves to share your knowledge. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Yeah, women have so much to offer, right?
Absolutely. Well,
especially as we age. Yeah.
100%. 100%. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
I trust you enjoyed this episode with Glenda Britton. Her passion for holistic nutrition, as fueled by her own lived experience, is a lesson for all of us to think about our own lifestyle and nutrition and how we can improve our energy, health, and life if we follow some simple strategies. Here are her key takeaways. Even though there are nutrients, foods, supplements, and lifestyle strategies for symptoms, unless you go upstream to the actual cause or imbalance, you just won't make any gains. Number 2, we are at a place in history where we have come so far away from our natural food sources that we need people like nutritionists. Nutritionists wouldn't have been the thing 100 years ago because we were eating organic foods and soil that was robust and full of nutrients. Number 3, the microbiome was a series of bacteria, fungi, parasites, and viruses, which is everywhere throughout our bodies and is a big indicator of our health. Most of our microbiome is in our gut. Even the bad ones have some good properties. Number 4, the problem is not the gluten. The problem is the gut. The problem is the health of the gut. Number 5, the superager concept is both cognitive and physical. In our 60s to 80s, we can function 20 or more years younger than what is expected in that age range. Number 6, we know that depression is an inflamed brain and that the gut and brain are connected. It's a direct connection. If we are working on inflammation in the gut, it can help with the brain health. It's all holistic. 7, a lot of people are having health crises sooner and are turning to healthy, holistic lifestyles as a result. Number 8, by supporting smaller farms, we are protecting our planet and lowering our carbon blueprint. Thank you so much for listening, and remember to take advantage of my Thanksgiving offer to you of 25% off my signature 3-month coaching program, It's My Time Now. If you'd like to make 2023 your year to finally invest in yourself, I can help you kickstart the new year beautifully because, my friend, it really is your time now. Reach out to me at kavita@powerpurposeplay.ca before December 2nd to learn more about what coaching with me can do for you. Until next time, happy Thanksgiving and stay well and stay safe.